Welcome, my 36 subscribers, everyone on Wrestling Reddit, and everyone affected by the Forbidden Door curse, a lot of injuries. Welcome to my review of All Elite Wrestling's and New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door 2022. Let's begin. So I'm gonna start with the pre-show first. So the first match is between Bishamon against the Factory, so Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi against QT Marshall and Aaron Solow. So I'm not gonna dwell a lot on this match because it was like an average TV match. Nothing much impressive happens, like nothing spectacular, except maybe one thing, but I'll talk about that later. So I'm surprised at how much offense the Factory got off on Bishamon, because Bishamon are former IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, and the Factory, I don't even see Aaron Solow on like AEW television, while QT Marshall, whenever he is on, he's being squashed. These are two guys who are very low on the card against Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi, who are like the number 3 tag team in the division. So I was surprised at how evenly matched this match was. But I got to see QT Marshall doing a 450 splash, which is fucking impressive, and it's my number 1 spot of the match. It's just sad that he missed. And maybe the most exciting spot out of Bishamon, the one that popped the crowd the most, is like the hand drumming. And I kind of don't get that because it looks so silly. I don't get how that's a thing in New Japan, because they're supposed to be more serious and we get this like incredibly silly spot. So yeah, I guess I'm just going with one spot of the match, and it's the missed 450. So yeah, this match was well wrestled, but nothing spectacular much happens. So yeah, and the finish is Bishamon do like a head kick Ushigoroshi combo on QT Marshall, taking him out of the match, leaving Aaron Solow open to be show-toed for the win. So yeah, this was the pre-showest out of all the pre-show matches. So after this, the second pre-show match is Lance Archer versus Nick Comoroto. And I enjoyed this more than the first one. It's definitely a TV match this time, but I enjoyed it more than the first. There was a lot more impressive moves here, and it was a lot more hard-hitting. Lance Archer is facing off another member of the Factory. This is turning out to be like a Factory-dominated pre-show for now. But this member is Nick Comoroto, so he's the strongest member of the Factory. And with his look and his feel, he kind of reminds me of Dr. Death, Steve Williams. He has the look down, but the in-ring is not there yet. I think that it was right that he managed to hold his own against Lance Archer and not get squashed, basically. I think this should have been the match that was like 9 minutes, while the first one should have had this one's time limit, which was like 6. So I love how commentary kept putting these guys over. They hyped up Lance Archer for his G1 participation, and they put over Nick Comoroto, saying that he should be in the G1 next year. And yeah, I think he should be. He would be a nice fit, but he would just lose all the matches because he's basically an AEW young lion. So yeah, next year maybe he'll be ready. But if he's not, if he doesn't pan out in a year, they could send him to Excursion in New Japan, and he would fucking help that roster out so much. Or just like any Japanese promotion. Maybe All Japan, New Japan, Noah, or who knows, DDT. He could have a feud with Yuki Onaya. So yeah, so time for the spots of the match. Number 2 spot is when Comoroto got up the turnbuckle from a seated position. He like rolled up. This looked really impressive, but it's set up for the finish, and he basically put himself in a position to lose. Nick Comoroto screwed Nick Comoroto in this match. And then the number 1 spot is this like sort of old school type moonsault by Lance Archer. Like, I mean Undertaker's old school, where he walks to the ropes and then like does a jumping move. But what Lance Archer does here is like a moonsault from this position. So the finish is Nick Comoroto does the impressive roll up to the top turnbuckle, but then sets himself up for the blackout by Lance Archer. So for the finish. So yeah, this pre-show match did not feel so pre-showy. It did its job of showcasing Archer, like building him up for the G1, as well as getting Nick Comoroto some like pay-per-view time. Because we all know he never shows up on TV, and he should start doing so. I even think he should be in Brian Cage's new faction. He would fit in well. But they would just like dominate everyone, I think. So after this, we get like a backstage interview by Alex Marvez on Clark Connors. He's a pretty solid promo. It's just when he wished Ishii like to get better soon, he stumbles on the word better, says Bell, but that's like nothing. He's got the tone down, and I like how they kept pushing that he only got the shot because the real dude got injured, and they play it out in the match to come. And so the third match in the pre-show is between Swerve in Our Glory versus the Suzuki Gun Juniors. So that's Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee versus Yoshinobu Kanemaru and El Desperado. So this match was so good that I think if given the proper build, could have been on the main card. I really like this thing that went on in the match where Despy and Kanemaru could not damage Keith Lee conventionally. They couldn't just do their normal stuff and like make progress on Keith Lee. They had to go for his leg. They had to be both in the ring at the same time. And man, did Keith Lee wrestle his weight. Because he just threw these guys around. Whenever he kicks out, he pushes them off of him. And they like fly off. So this was clearly a mismatch, but they made it work without it being a squash. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match. So number 3 is this part where Keith Lee's leg has already been worked on, and he has Kanemaru up for the Spirit Bomb, but Despy drop kicks his left leg, and so this enables Kanemaru to go for like a really big DDT from the victim position of the powerbomb. And then number 2 spot is when Kanemaru gets Keith Lee on like a figure 4 leg lock. And then as Swerve goes for the save, Desperado just comes out of nowhere. He gets him in a stretch muffler. And then Keith manages to save his and Swerve's ass. Like Desperado gets closer to them, like to Keith and Kanemaru. And then Keith just grabs Despy's head and then throws him at Kanemaru, breaking both holds. So I just love the creativity here. Lovely stuff from the New Japan guys and the AEW guys. And then the number 1 spot in the match is where Despy's on the apron. And so Swerve kicks him in the legs, knocks him down, but then Despy manages to save himself. So he's like in a precarious position, hanging off of the apron. And then Swerve goes for his double foot stomp, taking Despy out of the match and opening up Kanemaru for this move that Keith Lee does that I don't think is his finisher, but it's like a fireman carry press to win the match. And when Swerve and Keith leave the ring, Starks and Hobbs start cutting promos, they praise themselves, and they like verbally destroy the winners of the match. So yeah. So I think this should have been the last match of the pre-show. It was the best, and it could have been on the main card. And it's like a TV main event, pay-per-view undercard match. Really impressive stuff, and it's the least pre-showy out of all the pre-show matches. And then the final match on the pre-show, for me, is the pre-showest out of them all. It's supposed to be an 8-man tag team match between the Ass Boys, Billy Gunn, and Max Caster against the New Japan Dojo Young Lions, the LA Dojo Young Lions, Alex Coughlin, Kevin Knight, the DKC, and Yuya Uemura. But it turned into like a handicap match, a 2v4 handicap match, when like Danhausen drew away the attention of the Ass Boys, and then like they left, leaving Max Caster and Billy Gunn to fend for themselves. But the entrance here the rap that Max Caster does might be his best. He referenced hentai, he referenced Shibata's balls, and I think he jinxed the show even more because he referenced the injured list, like the Forbidden Door curse. So the Ass Boys did their usual stuff, Anthony Bowens got it right, and like Danhausen, again, like I said a while ago, he plays like the Ass Boys theme song that he commissioned, and then they went looking for him, leaving their dad and their like stepbrother to face off against these four young lions. So first of all, these four dudes from the LA dojo act so completely different from the young lions in Japan. Because the feel of the young lions in Japan is that they are legit like teenagers. They feel like teenagers even if like they're in their 20s. When next to veterans, they give them their proper respect, even if they're their opponents. And they don't seem to shill a lot, unlike the young lions from the LA dojo. These guys yell out the LA dojo's name a lot. They're a lot louder. They're kind of like adults already. They don't feel like students, especially Alex Coughlin. He's pretty jacked and he's the loudest among all of them. He also had the top spot of the match, the only top spot of the match. It's like a fall-away slam on Billy Gunn, who's like larger than him. So yeah, nice display for Alex Coughlin. But like other young lions, I like that they stick to their basic moves allowed to them. And they made like fight sounds a lot. A lot of yelling here. They always looked ferocious and hungry to prove themselves. And I think there's a spot where Max Caster accidentally hit the ref. Yeah, I'm just gonna post a picture of when I think this happened. And yeah, so the finish of the match is Billy Gunn does the Faymaster, he tags in Max Caster, and then Caster goes for the mic drop for the win. So yeah, that was the pre-show. Pretty good, but a bit too long for me. This should have been like 30 minutes of just like video packages and then the other 30 minutes of matches. So yeah, let's move on to the main show. So before I talk about the main show, this is a weird one here because commentary is revolving. We have a base of like Taz, Excalibur, and Kevin Kelly with Caprice Coleman, Jim Ross, and Tony Schiavone jumping in at various points. And there are also two announcers. We have Justin Roberts and Takuro Shibata from New Japan Strong. And Justin Roberts went 100% in every match, while Takuro Shibata just like went about like a 15 or a 20%. So he was outshined for most of the night, except for the last two matches where he finally did like the prolonging of the names, the exaggerated Japanese pronunciation, and he finally got the better of Justin Roberts from this point on. So the opening match of the show proper is a trios match between Chris Jericho, Minoru Suzuki, and Sammy Guevarra versus Eddie Kingston, Wheeler Yuta, and Shota Umino, or Shooter. And I love how much Umino has changed. He has proper gear, he finally has some facial hair, and he looks like a future ace. He actually looks kind of like Tanahashi, while Ren Narita looks like Shibata. And it's getting eerily close that I think they should let Ren and Shota build up their own characters instead of looking like the previous generation's aces. So this match starts with Chris Jericho and Wheeler Yuta. Chris Jericho tags Sammy in because he thinks Wheeler is like small fish. He thinks he can destroy him right away. But then Wheeler opens up with sextuple German suplex. So like 6 in succession that immediately got the crowd in the match. Like they went insane for this one. And then when Wheeler went for the pin, when Jericho got the shoulder up on 2, he went for a Daisuke Sasaki-esque transition into a crossface. And I really like this, and it might be a spot in the match. So everyone here had their moment to shine in the match, But if I were to pick a weakest performer here, I think it's Jericho. He was outshined by Sammy's high-flying moves and Minoru Suzuki's like whole aura and presence, as well as how stiff he works in the ring. And yeah, this is the most mobile I've seen Suzuki in a long time. And Jericho just did his like usual stuff. I think he took the most damage from the heel team, but he managed to get the pin in the end, so I guess he ended up looking very strong, kicking out of like shooters, finishers, and like big moves, as well as the top spot of the match. And he got the pinfall at the end. So it's kind of even exchange. And as for Eddie Kingston, I feel that this man was incredibly happy. He might have been marking out to himself because he has like a Japanese legend with him in the ring. And yeah, he managed to fulfill his fantasy of working for a Japanese promotion, kind of. But yeah, I hope this will be an opening of a door for Eddie Kingston to work in Japan. This guy is like a scholar and somewhat of a weeaboo of like Japanese wrestling. So I hope he gets to work in Japan in any of the three major promotions. So yeah, whenever he was with Minoru Suzuki in the ring, dude was in heaven while he got his ass kicked. And as for Wheeler and Sammy, Wheeler sort of fizzles out at the end. Like the peak of his whole performance is at the start, and he did an outside dive, but that was pretty much it. And as for Sammy, this is like the reverse, because he shined more near the end when he went for his like high-flying stuff, especially that outside dive. They managed to get a "This is awesome" chant when all of them were laid out. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match. So the number 3 spot in the match is this like diving symphony by almost everyone. I'm just gonna like put all the pictures of everyone who dived in like the 4 quadrants of the screen. And this culminates in Minoru Suzuki trolling everyone when he refuses to dive. The number 2 spot is the sextuple German suplexes by Wheeler Yuta on Chris Jericho, and this really got a nice reaction. It got the crowd in the match. It sort of set a tone in a bar that they adhered to all match long. And then for the number 1 spot in the match is an avalanche power slam by Shooter on Chris Jericho. This was not only the most visually impressive spot in the match, but I think if Sammy and Suzuki did not interfere, Shota would have gotten a win here. And so the finish of the match is Shota Umino really shining, looking the strongest out of everyone in the entire match, with all of his teammates knocked out. Shota just beats the shit out of Sammy Guevarra and Minoru Suzuki, but out of nowhere, as Shota was like celebrating and stuff, he was like hulking up. Jericho hit him with a Judas effect from behind for the win. So yeah, really good opening match. This beat out everything in the pre-show, and I think everything I watched for the past week. But this is a joint pay-per-view, so we have to consider that. If I would give this a rating in my usual rating system, this would be a TV main event, pay-per-view undercard match, which it is, but it could be higher up on the card. And just the stories going into this, the story between the wrestlers, and Eddie Kingston wanting to be a Japanese wrestler, basically. Yeah, great match. Let's move on to the next. So match number 2 is a 3-way tag team match for the ROH and the IWGP Tag Team Championships. So the teams involved here are FTR, so that's Dax Hardwood and Cash Wheeler, who are the ROH Tag Team Champions. We have Jeff Cobb and the Great Okan, who are the IWGP Tag Team Champions, and Roppongi Vice, who are Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero, who are not champions. So this is a 3-way tag team match, and these teams managed to make it a storyteller. Because early on, Dax injures his shoulder. I think this is a shoot, but Dave Meltzer said this was like storyline. So currently, I don't know what to believe, but I'm leaning on work. Just because of how the match plays out. So Dax gets taken out after he does an elbow drop on Rocky Romero. He favors his shoulder, he rolls out of the ring, and then he's taken out. The commentators show this on camera and they react to it. And so this creates a new dynamic in the match where Cash Wheeler is the new target because he's alone. And I like how the commentators, again, they point this out, that a wise strategy would be to keep Cash Wheeler in the ring. So Cash Wheeler gets beaten the shit out of him. He takes the most damage out of everyone. But thankfully, he gets tagged out. It doesn't get to that point where he almost loses for everyone. The new tactic presented to him now is to steal a tag, blind tag someone and take advantage of the downed opponent. So he does this later, but I'm gonna get to that in the spots of the match. And yeah, again, just like the previous match, everyone here managed to shine and managed to look good. They all performed well. And I think Roppongi Vice, who were the least favored team in this entire match, as well as the least reacted to, they deserve a little more respect. Because not only do they have the number 2 spot in the match, and they performed really well. I think they have a nice moveset, but the problem is they don't play up their gimmick. They're Roppongi Vice, they're supposed to be party boys or something, and they don't really take advantage of this. I think Roppongi 3K with Rocky Romero as a manager worked better than Roppongi Vice, ever. So I hope this gets addressed in AEW. And that's if they're given a storyline. Because I don't know, I still prefer Best Friends more. I think Trent works better with Chuck Taylor. And their gimmick is super solid. And as for United Empire, they were the true bona fide heels in this match. But I feel like they don't have an established or powerful looking enough double T move. Their double T moves here looked a bit basic, except for one, which I'll discuss shortly when we get to the spots of the match. But yeah, they were okay. New Japan doesn't have the best tag team division, so I'm glad that they managed to get experience here from AEW. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match. So I'll give a runner-up first. There's only one for me. It's when Cash went out and then went back in later on. They made the injury look so real. I thought this was a shoot. I thought the curse struck again, but thankfully it doesn't appear as bad as it looked because Dax makes a glorious return to a great reaction. So yeah, so number 3 is the United Empire spot where Great-O-Khan alley-oops Trent Beretta onto Jeff Cobb, and then Jeff Cobb catches him with the German suplex. And then number 2 spot in the match is this tornado DDT by Trent Beretta. But what makes this number 2 is the amazing sell that Great-O-Khan does, where he just flies out after landing on the floor. You're gonna have to watch this yourselves. It has to be seen as a video and not in pictures, because this looks amazing, and it might be an oversell, like a Shawn Michaels level of oversell, but it looks cool. This definitely popped me. So yeah. And then the number 1 spot in the match is where Trent Beretta and Dax Hardwood try to superplex Jeff Cobb, but before they get it off, Cash tags Trent, I think, or he tags Dax. I forgot who was the legal man. I think it was Dax. Cash did a sneaky tag through Trent's legs to Dax, and then when they finally got the superplex off, there was a loud fucking sound, of course, because Jeff Cobb is huge. This is a sort of moment where if the ring was gimmicked and if they wanted to do it, the ring would fall apart. And then right after this, Cash Wheeler goes for a Superfly Splash but gets a 2 count. So for the finish of the match, we have Rocky Romero tagging in. So it's him and Dax Hardwood who are the legal men. And then they have this sort of struggle. They did a lot of things where Dax's shoulder could be further aggravated if it's really injured. But from behind Dax, Cash is just lurking. And then when Rocky turns around, they set him up for a shatter machine or a big rig. And yeah, this finishes the match. What a great ending. It's sort of like the ending to the first match where he's caught unaware because of his own actions. Shota from the last match and Rocky from this one did a sort of celebration that ended up costing him the whole match and like 2 sets of tag team championships. So yeah, great finish, great match, nice story. And again, this surpassed the previous match and everything I watched within the week. This could be like a TV main event or a main event of a minor show or like further up the card. This is like the part of the card where the quality is just like escalating. So yeah, FTR are now owners to like 3 sets of tag team championships. There's only 1 left. That's within their current partnerships. And I hope they get it, but it would be awkward for them to lose any of the other titles, so I also kind of wish that the Young Bucks hold the AEW Tag Team Championships a little bit longer until the top guys manage to like lose a couple of their belts. Maybe the AAA ones. So yeah, again, great match. Let's move on to the next. Oh yeah, I forgot. After this match, we have like a backstage interview with Tony Schiavone, Jay White, and Juice Robinson, where Juice explains why Will doesn't have the United States Championship, and Jay like just plugs everything, plugs his match. And I like how he cuts a promo here, like better than he usually does, because usually he like lingers on all of his words. It's very slow. He like says, like for example, I will defeat you and I will still be the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. He sounds better when he's roasting people or in a press conference, just like the presser after this, or when he's like full on acting mode. When he's acting his gimmick, Switchblade, and he acts a bit deranged. That's when I think he's at his best. But when he sounds like the company guy, like plugging his IWGP Heavyweight Championship, that's when he sounds the worst, for me. Okay, so after this is the third match in the card. It's the 4-way match for the All-Atlantic Championship, which is a misnomer because everyone from around the world can challenge for it. So this is the match that I thought would steal the show, and it manages to do that. Holy shit. What a great fucking match. And I think it topped the last one. They had this nice story going on where Clark Connors, this dude, just targets Miro like almost 100% of the time. But every time he does so until that point, he just gets beaten up. Miro no-sells him. And basically, he treats him like a bitch. Miro was basically his daddy for like 70% of the match. And then later on, this guy spears Miro through a table and then manages to fucking kick everyone's ass. He steals the show in the show stealer and then manages to get all of the crowd on his side. This was amazing to watch. And coming in, he was like the least favored. There was like minimal reaction to his entrance. And yeah, I loved his performance here. This performance made him, just like the performance earlier made Shota Umino for all of the AEW fans. It's insane how he reminds me of Joseph Connors. You know, the former WCPW champion, and I think who was their best champion. That man had an amazing gimmick and an awesome look, and it looks very similar to Clark. I actually thought that he was the same person when I first watched him. I thought like they were like related or something. But yeah, it's like a coincidence. And then Malakai and Pac, the dudes who have been having like a rivalry for like the longest time now. They focus on each other, but they don't do anything like very spectacular until the second half. And whenever Malakai got the chance, he beat the shit out of Clark. Poor Clark. And when Clark was taken out by Malakai, there was this one part where Miro, the Redeemer, fucking allied himself with a pagan. Like a hypocrite. But Malakai later betrayed him, and then Miro kicked his ass. So now let's get to the spots of the match. So number 3 is when Malakai hit Miro with the Black Mist in order to break up the game over. He had this on Pac. Miro was going for like the finishing form of his finisher when he like pulls someone back, but Malakai doesn't let it get to this point and hits him with a Black Mist to the face, followed by the Black Mass, effectively taking Miro out of the match. And then the number 2 spot is where Clark Connors finally got a successful piece of offense against Miro. This opened up the floodgates to Miro finally selling to him. So this happens when Malakai sets up a table on the outside. He like leans it on the guardrail. And then as everyone is trying to hurt Miro, Clark Connors caps this off with a spear through the table. So yeah, great spot and a nice payoff to the Clark Connors performance. And finally, the best spot in the match is the finish. Because right after Malakai effectively takes Miro out of the match, Clark tries to attack him, but he catches him in a triangle choke, and before he gets to lock it, they conveniently place themselves near the turnbuckle, and then Pac hits him with a 450 splash, and then throws him out of the ring, and then does the Rings of Saturn on Clark to win by submission. So this is a tap-out submission, no fainting here, no need to protect themselves. Great fucking ending. And so finally, after 3 years of being in AEW, after being an original, he finally wins a championship, and it's won without a proper place in the hierarchy yet. So Pac deserves this so much. Even if wrestlers like don't like that term, he fucking deserves this. This was a long time coming. He should have won a championship, like any championship. I think he should have beaten Cody Rhodes or Darby Allin before finally dropping it to Miro. But yeah, what's important now is that he has a championship and he can elevate this however way he wants. And now I think Malakai is the next in line. He should get a championship sometime in the near future. I think he has the highest upside to everyone in this match. And in my TEW save, he is my current AEW World Champion. So yeah. So, based on the match quality, I think this could have been the main event to a pay-per-view. So yeah, every match so far has been better than the last. And when I watched this live, when I didn't know what happened like in the last 2 matches, I actually thought that this was going to be better than Double or Nothing. Or even Cyberfight. And in some ways, it definitely is. But yeah, I'm going to discuss that after the show. So yeah. Next match. So match number 4 is Bullet Club with the Young Bucks and El Fantasmo against Los Ingobernables de Japón with father and son Sting and Darby and their New Japan representative Shingo Takagi. So when they announced this, I totally didn't know what to expect. I thought this was such a weird pairing and I didn't know how it would work. But these mad lads made it work, and I think this was better than the last match. So after Shingo and Darby make their entrance, Sting's Titantron plays, his music plays, but he doesn't come out. So I thought Hikuleo could have had something to do with it. I thought they beat him up and like left him in the back, and he would just like catch up being taped up or something later on. I thought he would come out taped up, like injured, make the save, and win the match for them. But what they did here was pretty unpredictable, and it popped the whole fucking crowd, and I think it popped all of social media as well. This definitely got the fight chat going. So when the Bucks, Hikuleo, and El Fantasmo made their entrance, the lights turned off, and then Sting appeared, or like somebody dressed as Sting appeared on like the top of the arena. I think this is the rafters. I think that's what it's called. And so, like shortly before this, I thought Sting was gonna do his old entrance. He was gonna zip line all the way to the ring. And I was having nightmares of like an Owen Hart type incident. But thank God, Sting only appeared in the rafters. He teleported to one of the tunnels. We get a nice shot of like his silhouette. This gave me some Batman vibes. And then he jumped at all of Bullet Club from there. So a 63-year-old man did a fucking Jeff Hardy-like spot that he wouldn't be allowed to do if he was anywhere else. Shots fired. So yeah, what a great way to start the match. So I love the dynamic between the faces. I just wish that Hiromu was in the match. I really wanted to see Darby Allin and Hiromu Takahashi do like crazy dives or crazy shit. But yeah, we get one of the spots of the match which I've yet to rank. It's when Shingo and Sting beat on Phantasmo. They end this with a nice fist bump. That now makes me want to see Darby and Sting in New Japan. It would be cool for LIJ to have like a WCW legend. Or like a legend in general in Sting. So there was a bit of weird moments here that were pretty sports entertaining. It's when Matt Jackson and Phantasmo do like a dance routine before doing a back rake on Darby. This was really funny, and I think El Phantasmo's character is interesting. He just cheats all the time, and it's annoying. I hate this guy. He steps on some balls, he tries TD twisters, and he's just like not a pleasant dude to wrestle. So yeah, Darby didn't do anything dangerous, but the Bucks kind of did. They sort of carried the slack on that one, on that department. So yeah, this was basically a show stealer, and there's so much that happens, and Sting contributes to this like actively, and I'm gonna have to move on to the spots of the match to explain them. So I'm gonna have 3 runners up here. The first runner up is the finish. It was pretty simple. Takagi hit Phantasmo with his finisher, like the Last of the Dragon. I thought this looked cool. This is a great finisher, and it looked like it transitioned from something else, and just the strength that Takagi has is deserving of like a runner-up spot. The next runner-up is when Sting no-sold super kicks from the Young Bucks, and then he clotheslined them both, but this was a bit simple. I don't think they should have picked this spot to put on Facebook. I think they should have went for better ones. And then the last runner-up has to be the back rake spot, which I already explained. So for the top 3 spots, number 3 is a series of outside dives by the Bullet Club team. So first, Matt and Nick Jackson take out Takagi and Darby outside, and then Phantasmo goes for one. But this time, like, it's not on everyone. It's not on all 4 of them, because that's dumb. So Matt and Nick sort of set up Takagi and Darby to be dived on by El Phantasmo, and then after this, they go for like a triple super kick on Sting that caps off this whole sequence nicely. And for the number 2 spot in the match, it has to be what I'm going to coin now as the "you get what you fucking deserve" moment. It goes well with the Chekhov's moment, and I'm going to be adding more moments as I make more reviews. So in the middle of the match, Phantasmo goes for like the TD twisters on Sting, but Sting no-sells this. Sting has apparently nipples of steel. And then later on, near the end, Sting manages to put the TD Twisters on Phantasmo. That Phantasmo just like sells because unlike Sting, he doesn't have steel nipples. So yeah, Phantasmo, you get what you fucking deserve. First one in the history of the channel. And then for the number one spot of the match, undeniably, it is the start where Sting dived on all of Bullet Club. Just the shot of his silhouette, the shot of the guy on the rafters, and Sting's dive. I think it's gonna be one of like Sting's most iconic moments. So yeah, this match was better than the last. I think this could main event a pay-per-view based on the quality and any TV show. So yeah, great match. The show just keeps rising to this point, and then it sort of plateaus a little bit with the next match, and that was unfortunately the women's one. But before that one, we get a backstage segment where Shota Umino licking his wounds. He's just like standing around being treated by the medical staff as well as like interviewed by Tony Schiavone. But he gets cornered by Chris Jericho, Daddy Magic, and Cool Hand Ange. And Jericho throws a fireball at his face while feigning respect because he's a wizard. And great mic work by Daddy Magic as well as Cool Hand Ange. He's finally finding his thing, and he's no longer the vanilla guy from JAS. So yeah, I guess Shooter is out. He might show up in Blood and Guts for revenge. Yeah, who knows. Great segment though. So the next match is kind of difficult because it's the only AEW versus AEW match. It's the match between Thunder Rosa and Toni Storm for the AEW Women's Championship. I think this was the wrong move. I would have brought anyone from any Joshi promotion, or like anyone who's good in the ring, or like any top star of any Joshi promotion. Not just the ones under Bushi Road. It would have been cool to see Kairi Hojo, Mayu Iwatani, even Momo Watanabe, or God forbid, Shuri Kondo, which would have been cool, even if it just ends in a tie. Or they could have brought in anyone from Tokyo Joshi Pro, like Miyu Yamashita. Mizuki would have been cool. Or Asuka from DDT. But despite this, I think the women put on a better match than Rosa did with Deeb in Double or Nothing. There was way less awkwardness here, less botches, and I think Toni Storm works well with, or like better with Thunder Rosa than with Britt Baker. So yeah, they did a lot of cool shit here. And not only this, but they were stiff with their strikes. They told a good story regarding Toni Storm's arm that starts in the later stage of the match, but then later affects the ending. This cost Toni Storm her finishing move. So basically she sold on offense, and again, I like that. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match. Number 3 is where Rosa counters Toni's usual tornado DDTs to the outside. She manages to catch Toni Storm and then goes for a Northern Light suplex on the floor. And number 2 spot is where Toni Storm German suplexes Thunder Rosa on the apron. This could have been number 1 if Toni Storm was a bit stronger and if she managed to perform the German suplex without making it seem like she hurt herself, but she hurt herself. And as for the number 1 spot in the match, it's the Fire Thunder driver that went after like a Death Valley driver. Like they were done in rapid succession, but Toni Storm manages to kick out, and this near fall here, the way that Thunder Rosa sells this was amazing. It's like she didn't know what to do anymore. You could see the fear on her face, that she's tried everything but nothing seems to work, but then she thinks of another finish. And so for the finish, Toni Storm sells on offense. She tries to do a powerbomb on Rosa, but her arm gives out. And then Thunder Rosa does One of the most anticlimactic finishers, in my opinion. And yeah, it doesn't work with her. I think she should have just done this to set up her true finish, which is a Fire Thunder driver. So yeah, great match, but couldn't live up to the previous two ones. But I think this was better than the first two matches of the card. So yeah, it's a minor show or TV main event and like a pay-per-view undercard match. So now it's time for the best match in the card and was everyone's most underrated show stealer of the entire night. Everyone didn't want Orange to fight Will, but they managed to put on a banger here and yeah, they made Forbidden Door. And this is the IWGP United States Championship match between Will Ospreay and Orange Cassidy. So they do an awesome opening sequence where Orange has his hands in his pockets and then they sort of do like cruiserweight opening moves. That ended with Will Ospreay doing a complicated flip and Orange just getting in the same position. He does a thumbs up and then he smiles at Will. So Orange does his like usual antics, but this ends up costing him badly. Will gains control and manages to work on his back and shoulder, but not to the point where Orange has to sell this like all the time. Doesn't get to that point. But yeah, I just love the counters here. Orange manages to do some trickery, and the high flying spots here were just mwah. So let's get to the top 3 spots of the match. So as an honorable mention, I would like to bring up the moonsault by Orange Cassidy on Aussie Open to the outside. Number 2 spot is the finish, and it's when Will Ospreay hit Orange Cassidy with the hidden blade, but Orange kicks out. This pops the crowd so hard that everyone gets like up their seat. They all stand up. And just like Thunder Rosa from the previous match, Will Ospreay just sells this so much. His eyes of disbelief. But then Orange, already weak enough, isn't able to counter when Will Ospreay finally delivers the Stormbreaker for the win. It's his Burning Hammer, it's his ultimate finisher. And for the number 1 spot in the match, it has to be when Orange hit Will. Like, he smashed his head on the promo camera that's placed like at the post. And so Will like gets groggy. Orange sort of falls down, but he lands on his feet and then brilliant moment here. He fakes that he fell on the floor. He fakes that he's hurt. He does a fake bump. And then like Will Ospreay doesn't know this is happening because he's facing the other way. So he goes for like a moonsault. He lands on his feet. But then eventually hits Orange with like a ground shooting star press. And that was the coolest spot in the entire match. Like, no question. So yeah, this match had to be a main event. It was that good. I still like the CM Punk versus Hangman Page match more, as well as the Keno versus Daisuke Sasaki, but this isn't far off from those. And we've basically had like 0 bad matches so far. This might be AEW's most like consistent pay-per-view ever, even if it doesn't reach the highs that their bigger shows do. And so after this, Will Ospreay, pissed off that Orange Cassidy managed to make a joke out of him, he made it a challenge. So Will Ospreay got the Aussie Open to kick his ass. And I was thinking here, someone has to save Orange. Like, there was no way that like he wasn't getting saved. They were just milking it so much. Even like the fight chat said, who the hell's gonna save Orange? So first, Roppongi Vice show up, but then they get their asses kicked right away. It's 3v2. They're weakened against like a fresh Aussie Open. They're outnumbered. So yeah, they get thrown out, they get their asses kicked, and bye-bye Roppongi Vice for the entire night. So it looks hopeless for Orange Cassidy. Like, he was about to get destroyed here. His career was about to be ended after a beatdown this long. But then, someone's music hits. And it's someone I didn't expect. It's fucking Katsuyori Shibata. So not all the fans seem to know who he was. Just the ones in the front row and some scattered around the arena. But they popped pretty hard. There was just one thing wrong here, and they cut out when Shibata hit Kyle Fletcher. So we don't see that. But he managed to hit Mark Davis pretty hard. And it was thankfully caught on camera. But when he got in the ring, he beat the shit out of Will Ospreay. But not as hard as he used to. Because back then, he would just stiff people. Imagine if this guy wasn't injured. I believe he would have been like a world champion or something. He should have been. Because he deserved it. He was good enough. And after that match with Okada, I think everyone sort of saw how good he was. We saw him at his peak. But he injured himself. He sort of ended his career for a while. And now I think he's making a comeback. But it's probably going to be like a part-time thing. So yeah, after he drives away United Empire, he stands face to face with Orange Cassidy in the ring. It looks like they're about to shake hands, they're about to fight or something. But Orange brings out his shades and then he puts it on him. He kind of looks like Bruce Lee with that hair, but yeah, fucking great moment, great surprise. But this isn't the first we've seen of this. Shibata has made saves in the past. He's even wrestled a UWF style match with Zack Sabre Jr. And yeah, this wasn't as special as someone would think. But then this was topped by an even greater surprise next match. So the next match is Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson's substitute. So this surprise was pretty much expected by everyone. Everyone unanimously believed that this was going to be the guy. But I think it's a greater surprise than Shibata because we've already seen Shibata in the ring multiple times. Not everyone in the arena popped for him. And yeah, this guy here finally gets what he deserves. I hope he doesn't get lost in the shuffle. So yeah, right after Zack Sabre Jr. says all the bad words at the crowd, he says it all British-like the smarmy heel that he is. His opponent makes an entrance, and it's fucking Claudio Castagnoli or Cesaro. This guy enters with a great fucking theme song. It's the theme song when something epic happens in Dove and Hattie's Roman History series. You should check that out. It's a rock version of the 1812 Overture by Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. So yeah, that's my best Russian accent. Don't expect anything more. So Claudio enters with a great theme song, finally. It sounds very, very triumphant, so it really elicits feelings from the listener. And I guess he felt it too because this guy just took in the moment. Because this guy stood for 30 seconds on the stage just taking in everything. Because it's been a long time since this many people unanimously the whole arena cheered for him as a babyface. He was never pushed very hard in the WWE. And when he was a heel. So we never got the whole arena. The last time was probably when he won the Andre. And yeah, glad to see Claudio here. He makes his way into the ring, just soaking everything up. And then when he gets to the left side, near the steps, he spots the cameraman who's been rumored to be him. And then we get this shot from another cameraman with Claudio and the cameraman beside each other to make fun of our stupid rumors. And you know what? This is better than him actually being the cameraman. This definitely added to his debut. So for the match itself, they started it off with Claudio hitting his WWE finisher, his neutralizer, on Zack, and then Zack kicks out at 2.99. And for the rest of the match, it was just Zack Sabre Jr. working on Claudio's right arm or right shoulder. He used every ounce of like technical wrestling in his body, and you can clearly see it with how Zack Sabre Jr. wrestles. He never betrays this. While Claudio, even if advertised as a technical wrestler, he wrestled more of like a power style. There was only like a handful of moments, or like I think one moment, where he displayed his technical wrestling acumen, or what you would describe as that. But most of the match, he just powered out of Zack Sabre Jr.'s like submissions. Sabre tried to roll him into pretzels, but he managed to like literally power through some of the moves. As in, he just lifts Sabre while Sabre's doing the submission and just throws him around. And I like how consistent Claudio is with his selling. When he tried to go for the giant swing or the Cesaro swing, he did like just 5 of them and then he stopped right away. He sold the shoulder and like apologized to the fans for not delivering. But we'll get to see that later on in the night. So let's get to the top 3 spots of the match. So number 3 is the octopus stretch by Zack on Claudio, while Claudio is like on the top turnbuckle. So I love octopus stretches, and this one is like elevated. So really good. Number 2 is when Zack got Claudio in this weird submission move. The commentators called this an ankle bar or something, but it looked really intricate with where the legs are placed. And then Cesaro like just does a few adjustments and then turns it into a sharpshooter. So he adjusts the placement of the legs and then he powers through the submission, doing his own. And the number 1 spot has to be where Zack has Claudio in like a Hell's Gate or like a triangle choke. He rolls Claudio out of the ring, so they're now on the outside, and then Claudio just lifts him from there in a powerbomb position with the triangle choke still applied, and then he carries Sabre in this position, going up the steps, and then he powerbombs him into the ring. So this is the most physically impressive spot, maybe of the entire night. So yeah, that's number 1. So for the finish of the match, Claudio catches Zack on like a super European uppercut. He then delivers like a discus clothesline and then finishes the match with a Ricola bomb. I kind of don't like the Ricola bomb as a finisher because a lot of people already have like a power bomb as their finisher, and it would have been nice to have his be a super European uppercut. But yeah, maybe I'll just get used to the Ricola bomb. So after watching the matches twice, this and the one preceding it, I'm gonna have to give the edge to this one. Because although the match with Ospreay and Orange was a lot of fun, and it was buffed up by that awesome post-match segment, the selling from Orange Cassidy was just not consistent enough. He got hit by like all of Will Ospreay's finishers and he manages to stand up after. He got hit by like a standing shooting star press and then he like stood up immediately after. So yeah, minus points for that one. But here, Claudio's selling was a lot more consistent. He sold on offense, and then the fun levels in this match were like closer to the last one, but in different ways. It goes about it differently, and this was buffed up by the debut. So yeah, so I'm gonna have to give the edge of best match so far to this one over the last. And as for the rating, it's a pay-per-view main event or like any other minor show main event. Okay, so for the penultimate match, it is the semi-main event. It is for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And yeah, that's how Jay White says it. And it's just annoying every time he does it. It's become like a catchphrase now. So yeah, so this is a 4-way match between the champion, Jay White, Hangman Page, Adam Cole, and Kazuchika Okada. So this is when the Japanese announcer, Takuro Shibata, woke up and started prolonging his words when he announces. He basically does what Justin Roberts has been doing for the entire night. And shit, this guy can announce. Because he actually sounded better than Justin Roberts. But he has the more badass language. So can't really blame Justin Roberts for that. And then even before the match started, like everyone in the arena, made the most noise out of the entire night. And yeah, I can't deny that this isn't my most anticipated match, because it is. I thought this would work better as like a singles match between Hangman Page and Kazuchika Okada. But I mean, Jay White has greatly improved from when I last saw him, and Adam Cole can be cool most of the time. He's just having like a slump of matches. His match against Samoa Joe wasn't particularly good. So yeah, I wanted to be his bounce back, but what unfortunately happens in the end, it's just sad and disappointing. We won't be getting something like this for like another year. Or if this sold poorly, we won't be getting another one like this ever again. But thankfully, from what I've seen, it seems to be good. The buy rate seems to be good, Tony's satisfied with it. And yeah, thankfully, this show, even with a curse that's about to be added upon, is doing pretty good. So yeah, now let's get to the actual match. This started off with the faces and the heels teaming up against each other. So this opening part of the match, there's nothing really interesting happening here. For like about 5 minutes, the coolest thing that happens, in my opinion, are like the 2 sweet chops by Jay White. And that's pretty much it for the start. But this picks up gear. Like every 5 minutes, it intensifies. So for the next 5 minutes, they increase the gear, they intensify with their offense, and we get like 3 spots of the match that I haven't placed yet. And so 10 minutes in, this is where the heel alliance breaks down, and like they have this sort of conversation. They like talk a bit, they 2 sweet each other, and then Adam Cole literally backstabs Jay White. He hits him with a backstabber and his sort of like suplex knee drop, while the babyface alliance broke down not long from this, and it's a lot more nonchalant because Page just like boots Okada as he's going for someone else. And for like the closing stretch of the match, we get like the standard stuff. They try to go for the finishers. There's a lot of countering, a lot of denials. And I think Adam Cole might be the best performer of this match because his super kicks were just super on target, especially the number 1 spot in the match and this one where like he super kicks Page as he's going for like the buckshot. And then right after this is when the match was effectively ruined because Adam Cole is concussed after he's dropkicked. So it's this dropkick over here where Cole goes a little too far. He's a little bit too in the middle of the ring. So he eats Okada's feet just a little more than he should. And this guy has a great dropkick. And Adam Cole is a great seller. So I didn't think anything was wrong here. I didn't even know that Adam Cole was injured until like after the match. So Okada goes for like a Michinoku driver, and then he goes for a Rainmaker, and then I'm surprised how Adam Cole dodges it. I thought this was gonna be it, but it wasn't, so I was like, what the fuck's happening here? This doesn't make sense. And then Jay White goes for like the Blade Runner on Okada and then doesn't pin him. And again, I was like, this doesn't make sense even more. And then for the trifecta, they actually end the match without like improvising, without saving it or anything. They just went with their plan and pinned Adam Cole for the win. I honestly think that these 3 remaining dudes who are conscious, who are able to wrestle the match to completion, should have just improvised another ending. Because I don't know how hard it is to do, but I don't think like Adam Page loses too much if he gets pinned, or neither does Okada because Jay White already beat him clean. Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't improvise here to at least save the match, to make the concussion less apparent, and to like not make the match feel as awkward as it did. So yeah, let's get to the spots of the match first before I talk about one more thing. So yeah, number 3 spot of the match is the double suplex by Adam Cole and Jay White to Hangman Page on the like LCD floor. It was like well protected and it didn't break, thank God. Plus points for that. And then the number 2 spot is where Okada throws both the heels to like the fans area, and then he tells everyone to just move aside. And usually when this happens in Japan, there is like a space between the barricade. Like there is one barricade near to the ring where people land on when they do outside dives that is pretty far away from the other people, especially in the bigger shows and from what I remember in Wrestle Kingdom, because like there is like a big space and I've been to Wrestle Kingdom. But here, what makes it even cooler is that this is where the moneyed people sit, of course. It's like front row. And then they just take orders from Okada to move aside. And then Okada does his like running dive. He jumps over the barricade and then it hits both of the heels. As a fan, I think I would completely mark out and take selfies if this happens in my sitting area. So yeah, this is number 2 spot of the match. Then as for the number 1 spot in the match, it's Adam Cole's super kick to Hangman Page as he's doing a moonsault. Like he gets him in midair, pinpoint accuracy. It doesn't hit anywhere else because usually when other people do it, when the Bucks do it, for example, in their Double or Nothing match against the Hardys, they usually hit shoulders, they hit the body. They don't necessarily super kick the head. But here, Page and Cole just have it like locked down. It's foolproof and they just do the spot the best. So yeah, I already mentioned the finish. It's disappointing. I think they should have just improvised, but this is an accident. And this is more of an accident than what happened with Nakajima and Endo. Because a dropkick is harder to control. And when Adam Cole like got too close to take it, some blame could be levied on him. But when Nakajima just did an open hand slap, a move you can control better than a dropkick, on Tetsuya Endo, who's just in front of you, just standing there, stationary, I feel that Okada's dropkick to give Page a concussion is totally like below what Nakajima did. So I feel that Okada should just get a slap on the wrist, should just apologize to Cole, and not get punished much. And plus, Cole is not a champion, and this happened at the end of the match, not 5 minutes in out of 40. And no one should enjoy something like this, like how some Noah fans enjoy how Nakajima knocked out the champion of a company that you don't like. So I'm just preempting before someone calls me out. Sorry for that if you're not into Pro Wrestling Noah or DDT. But yeah, as for the rating for this match, if that incident didn't happen, I would have given it like a sure pay-per-view main event. But I'm gonna have to lower it down to it has to be on a pay-per-view, but it's not a main eventer. It's like an undercard match that's somewhat up the card, but it can't be a main event. Not with that ending. So now it's time for the main event of the evening. This is Jon Moxley versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the interim AEW Heavyweight Championship. So this is where Justin Roberts and Takuro Shibata were just at their A game, because this is like Justin Roberts' boy. He's the best dude to say Jon Moxley like ever. And we have Takuro Shibata, who like is an announcer of NJPW Strong, but I guess he's practiced saying Hiroshi Tanahashi a lot. He says it like how it's supposed to be said. It's a name that is in his language, so this ends up being his best name announcement of the entire night. Same goes to Justin Roberts, but for Moxley. So this match was paced like a Japanese main event. So it starts slow. We have like a lot of breathing room before they do the moves. We get some working on some limbs, but not very consistent, and this doesn't like play out at the end of the match. They don't injure each other's body parts here, so that's pretty unfortunate. And it actually got kind of boring when we get to like minute 10. But then things like shift gears when Mox Uranagi's Tana on like the timekeeper's table. And then I thought, why wasn't Mox disqualified? And then I remembered, there is no champion here. No one will retain from a disqualification, and the title can't go to anyone if someone's disqualified. So this is basically a no DQ match. And then we get a nice commentary call when Tanahashi beats the 10 count, gets in the ring, and then Kevin Kelly, the commentator from New Japan, mentions the difference in rules. I like that he said that in Japan it's 20 seconds, in the US it's 10, so this kind of goes against Tanahashi's instincts when he's being counted out, and that he beat the 10 count, he did his homework, and yeah, plus points for that. And then shortly after this, we get the moment that for me elevated this match to main event levels. This is when Tanahashi goes for a sling blade, and then like Moxley rolls out of the ring. At first, I thought he bladed. Like when he rolled out, he was seen like touching his head a lot. I thought this was blading. But then I asked on the good old Reddit, and then it turned out that Tana and Mox's head collided after that sling blade, and it wasn't just like Ric Flair levels of wanting to bleed. So yeah, so match saved. I was about to like dock some points from this, but yeah, not anymore. And then shit, Mox was like bleeding like a stuffed pig, as JR would like to say, and he had like a crimson mask. And then to like make this even cooler, Tana went for like a flying crossbody on Mox, who's just like bleeding all over the place. And so after this crossbody, blood just covers Tanahashi's back. Not only is the move awesome, but so is the visual. And then when they get back in the ring, I love how Mox played possum. The ref was like checking on him, so like Tanahashi had second thoughts. He wasn't walking to Mox faster than he should have, because Mox was like holding his cut. He had his hand held like in a stop hand gesture, and then he sneakily tries to go for the Death Rider, but he fails. And then we get like 3 twist and shouts, 1 German suplex, and then the paradigm shift that Tanahashi kicks out of, like at 2.999, but he's covered in yet more blood. Korn would be proud at this match. I know I'm starting to narrate the match, but this just gets cooler and cooler. Even if they don't go for like show stealer moves, the way that Tana just covers himself in Mox's blood, like kayfabe unintentionally, is my favorite thing of this entire match. So yeah, the blood really elevated it. It turned like an average match that was getting kind of boring into like an epic. So all my spots in the match are all near the finish, so let's talk about them first. An honorable mention is the sequence where Tana just covers himself in blood. So I already summarized this a while ago. And then number 3 is the finish where Mox goes for like a rear naked choke and then delivers the Death Rider on Tana for the win. 1, 2, 3. And then number 2 spot in the match is where Tana goes for the crossbody to Moxley, who is just like starting to bleed. This is the first time in the match where Tana just covers himself with Mox's blood. So yeah, number 2. And then the number 1 spot in the match is like this strike exchange where Mox hits Tana with a clothesline, but Tana doesn't go down. And then Tana comes back with like his usual like slap thing that he does. It looks more like a claw to the face. This like turns Moxley, making him like look away from Tana. And so seeing this as an opening, Tana goes for like a running attack, but then Mox turns back around and then hits him with a stiff fucking lariat. And then he goes for the pin, but Tana kicks out at fucking 1, and this made the crowd erupt. This popped me, and I think this is the best moment of this match. This is the climax for me. So yeah, Moxley wins the AEW Interim Championship, and then they show respect to each other, but then they're attacked by JAS, and then everyone from both factions come in to help, but when everyone you expect is like in the ring, only Claudio gets music. He comes inside, he beats everyone in the ring, and then we finally get the giant swing on Cool Hand Ange. And he just swings him for like 10 times until Ange is just like lifeless. And then he throws him out of the ring to Jericho. And as all of this is happening, Mox and Tana are on the floor just selling. Claudio has like an interaction with Eddie Kingston. They have like beef, so they don't get along. Kingston leaves the ring when Claudio enters. And then we close the show with like a stare down between both of the teams. So I think this is an awesome finish. You have to build up your next show. But I'm seeing some people say that this makes this show less about New Japan. And I kind of agree that Tana helping out or like staring down with Jericho's faction could have looked cool. But number one, he's not going to be in this feud. He's going to be in the G1, so what's the point? And this just like is selling from the beating that he took from Mox. Mox was selling too. They had an excuse to be on the floor, and I think this complaint by people doesn't hold much water. Yeah, it gets people excited from Blood and Guts. It's probably going to result in more viewers, and it's just cool to finally get a giant swing from Claudio. So yeah, I think Forbidden Door, upon reflection, is better than Double or Nothing. Okay, yeah. It's better than Double or Nothing. It doesn't rely on like gimmick matches like Anarchy in the Arena. It manages to be better than the Page versus Punk match for me because of Punk's botches. And this match had no botches. And just the blood elevated the main event for me. As for the rest of the card, this was the most consistent they've ever been, I think. Because Double or Nothing had some stinkers in there. So yeah, that's why I think this is better. But how does it compare to Cyberfight? This is better than Cyberfight. The main event wasn't as dramatic as it is here, and that one relied on a gimmick match. But I still think Shoko Nakajima versus Yuka Sakazaki is the best women's match I've watched for like the last few months. So yeah, I'm gonna give it that. So for my rankings, it's Forbidden Door, Double or Nothing, Cyberfight, Slammiversary, and then Dominion. So yeah, we had a crazy month of wrestling, a crazy past few months of wrestling. A lot happened, we had a lot of great matches. But all things must come to an end. This is the end of Forbidden Door for now. Depends on the buy rates, but it's looking good so far. But yeah, we won't be getting any big pay-per-views for a while. And I'm kind of happy that I get to review all of those shows before things get busy for me here. Because yeah, I have like a bit of a channel update. Things are gonna be busy for me because school is about to start. They like moved it earlier. School is gonna start at the 4th of July, and then we're gonna have like minor sort of like clinical simulation in our school. It's called like a skills lab thing. We get to practice what we would do in the hospital on like dummies and stuff. But after a month, or so I've been told, I'm gonna start studying a bit. And I'm going to be rotating in the hospital a lot, so there are going to be less reviews. There's going to be a lot less frames in my reviews from then on, but I still have a month of not so intense action, so I might be able to do this style of like reviews for not all the shows. I might not be able to cover some Noah and some DDT shows, but for AEW, I'll still be able to cover the weekly Dynamite and the pay-per-views, even if I've started rotating in the hospital. But yeah, just know things are about to change, and I hope you stay with this channel, even if I go like on breaks or something, because when internal medicine starts, Jesus Christ. So yeah, my match rankings have been on the screen for a while now, and that main event is the best match of the night. Even if on first watch I didn't think so, but upon like a second watch, when I saw what was happening and fully realized on how the blood happened, this just like elevated the already like high level match that I watched that was itself elevated by the blood. So yeah, Like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Share if you don't know me. Hit that bell notification for future videos. And please, watch my shit.